स्वागत है सभी का मेरे YouTube चैनल पर। आज मैं इस वीडियो के अंदर जो 4 मार्क्स में क्वेश्चन पूछे जा सकते हैं पैडागोजी ऑफ इंग्लिश के अंदर, उन क्वेश्चनों को डिस्कस करने वाला हूं। तो आइए शुरू करते हैं। पहला क्वेश्चन है नेचर ऑफ लैंग्वेज। अगर क्वेश्चन आ जाता है तो हमें कम से कम 4 नंबर का अगर आता है तो 4 पॉइंट तो लिखने ही होते हैं। तो आइए देखिए, लैंग्वेज इज लर्नड। लैंग्वेज is a system. Language is a system of systems. Language is a system of symbols. Language is arbitrary. Symbols are arbitrary. Symbols are vocal. Language is unique. Language is a skill subject. Language is for communication. Language relates to the culture. लैंग्वेज इज एवर चेंजिंग। 11 पॉइंट हैं। अगर 4 नंबर में आ जाता है तो 4 पॉइंट्स आप इनमें से लिख सकते हैं। नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन आ जाता है डिफरेंस बिटवीन एम्स एंड ऑब्जेक्टिव्स। एम्स आर वेरी जनरल इन कैरेक्टर। ऑब्जेक्टिव्स आर पर्टिकुलर एंड स्पेसिफिक। एम्स आर ब्रॉड इन नेचर। ऑब्जेक्टिव्स आर वेरी लिमिटेड। Aims form the basis in educational planning. Objectives form the basis for curriculum construction. Aims are the ultimate goals which are to be achieved. Objectives are the immediate goals to be achieved. Aims are long term. Objectives are for short term. In the achievement of aims, unlimited time is needed. Objectives can be achieved within a limited time. Next question. Objectives of teaching prose. To develop listening skills of the students, to develop speaking skills of the learners, to develop reading habits of the students, to give practice of loud reading and silent reading, to help them have practice of writing English correctly, to make them read prose intensively and extensively as the case may be, to help the learners add to their vocabulary, to enable the learners develop the ability to write independently, accurately, and creatively on subjects of general interest, to develop the habit of reading for pleasure, to make the students library minded and develop their interest for extra reading, to give them practice of structures and sentences pattern, to improve their pronunciation, to make the students interested in English literature, to develop love of the students for English language, to enable the students to read prose effectively and with a reasonable speed, to help the students understand the applied grammar contained in prose, to enable the students to enjoy reading and writing of the material, to help the students express the ideas contained in the paragraph orally as well as in writing. Objectives of teaching prose. Poetry is an important mode of expression in language. Without the study of poetry, a person cannot be considered to be well read in language. A subject which cannot be captivate a person or arouse his feelings is not good subject. Poetry is that aspect of language which fundamentally provides entertainment to the readers. We teach poetry with the objectives given below. According to Minan Patel, the aim of teaching poetry is not much to improve the child's knowledge of English as to add to his joy and increase his power of appreciation of beauty. According to Dev Singh, in teaching poetry, the aim is mainly to enjoy the music, rhythm, and rhyme of the verse, the beauty and force of phraseology, the with witchcraft of the figure of speech, and the emotions of the poet. Learning of words and phrases is incidental only. To give practice of listening to recitation of the poem, to help the student recite a poem in a proper way, to make the student understand the beauty of the thought contained in the poem, to help them enjoy music and rhythm of the poem, to help them improve their power of imagination, to help them to appreciate the poem by awakening in them the aesthetic qualities of appreciation, to develop love of the student for English language, to make the student familiar with the background of the poem, to refine the aesthetic essence of the student, to make the student pick up the structure or pattern of a sentence, and above all to make the student understand the poem, to help the students have balanced development of personality. Objectives of teaching grammar. The main objective of teaching grammar at school level are as under: to make the learner understand the structuring of words and sentences, to enable the student to express their ideas correctly in spoken and written form, to help the student have scientific attitude towards language, to make the students understand the meaning of the words and their usage in the sentences. Objectives of teaching composition: to give listening practice to the students, to give speaking practice to the student, to give reading practice to the student, to give writing practice to the students, to improve the spoken English of the student, to help the student to think freely, to enable the student to organize their ideas logically and in continue to develop the imagination of the students. Advantages of oral work. The following are the advantages of the oral work. The student become good in listening. They try to listen comprehensively. It improves the comprehension ability of the student. The student at the early stages of learning the language find a lot of pleasure and excitement in oral approach. They are able to develop the skill of speaking. To it helps them to acquire fluency in spoken language. It lays the foundation of good speech. Learning nursery rhymes and reciting them orally gives the student a lot of pleasure. It helps the student to form the habit of using correct sentence pattern. It helps the students much when they are to generalize or they are to formulate a rule of grammar by the inductive method. It helps the student in becoming good debaters, orators, and in becoming active participants in discussion. It removes hesitation and shyness of the speaker. Naturally, it induces confidence and also encouragement. Objectives of teaching reading skill. The objectives of teaching reading skill are as under: to enable the student to read and full with full understanding, to enable them to understand the meaning of each word content in the sentence, to help them have good reading practice, to enable them to have the correct pronunciation of the words in isolation and also the context of a sentence, to develop the appreciating ability of the student, to develop interest of the student in literature, to develop their habit of reading for pleasure, to acquaint the students with the different style of writing. Next, importance of good handwriting. Every language handwriting of the learner is considered very important. In fact, every student of the language is expected to have a good handwriting. By good handwriting, we mean legible and fully clear type of writing. The following points show the importance of good handwriting. A good handwriting impresses others, especially the one for whom it is meant. A good handwriting communicates the thoughts and ideas accurately. It is easily understandable. There is no scope for any type of misunderstanding. It helps in creating interest of the student in language learning. Good handwriting once acquired become an asset with the learner. Handwriting of a person speaks to a considerable extent about the personality of an individual. Thus, from good handwriting of a person, we can judge about him or her. The good handwriting of an examiner motivates the examiner and thus ensure more credit to the student. A good handwriting of a person becomes a living example for others. The student whose handwriting is very good feels as a pride possession. The teacher whose student has got good handwriting consider to it to be a matter of his pride and privilege. नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन आ जाता है मेथड्स एंड अप्रोच. डिफरेंस बिटवीन मेथड एंड अप्रोच. In a method, the word how is important. In approach, the word what is important. Here we have to reach the goal, and goal is the target language and approach is goal itself. We are directly confronted with the language. It deals with pedagogy. Any method could be used. We have always to select the most suitable method and approach. It is the subject matter, the contents. The teacher plays some role and then the subject matter reaches the learner, and in approach there is direct link between the learner and the subject matter. Examples are translation method of teaching English means teach by translating into mother tongue. In approach, the contents are to be used rightly. There we can use any method for it. There is flexibility in the selection of the method. Direct method means teaching the target language directly through that medium. Thus, in the case of a method, we are rigid and we have to follow the method rigidly. Objectives of communicative language teaching: to develop communicative competence among the learners, to enable the learners create meaning and rather than devoting extra attention to grammatical structures, to help the learners think of variety of real life situation where communicative practice is possible, to help the learner to give stress to the meaning and functions of the language, to enable the learners acquire the four basic skills of the language: listening, speaking, reading and writing through problem solving activities. Next question: principles of cooperative learning: positive interdependence, attachment to the group, heterogeneous group, criteria of working, social skills, responsibility, accountability, training for leadership, principle of encouragement, academic and social purpose, performance of the group. Advantages of phonetics: the following are the some of the advantages of phonetics. By getting training in phonetics, we can learn an accurate and pleasing pronunciation of a foreign language. Any controversy regarding pronunciation of a word can be discussed sensibly on only in the light of the knowledge of phonetics. It can be used for teaching speech sound even to the deaf. It is useful to modify speech habits or to develop new speech habits. We come to know the physical aspect of English sounds. It is possible to differentiate sounds of one language from those of others. We can apply phonetics to the cure of specific speech defects such as lisping of various kinds, inability to pronounce various consonants like a, h, etc. It also helps in the study of philology, science of language. Next question: stress. Stress may be described as the degree of force which with which a sound or syllable is uttered. The speaker has the feeling of a great energy or force of utterance in stress syllable than in unstressed syllables. To the listeners, the stress syllables is often louder than the unstressed syllable. John says it is the degree of force with which a speaker pronounces or a word or a syllable. Stress is not just decoration to language, it is in fact an important part of it. It gives music to the language and makes it clearly understandable. It is shown by a vertical stroke placed above the stress syllable. For example, conduct. It is an element of great significance in spoken language since all the syllables in a word are not evenly stressed and all the words in a sentence are not uttered with uniformity. The difference in stress changes the meaning of the utterance. If we take up the sentence Neela is my beloved, we have different meanings by the shift in stress. Next, rhythm. Generally, rhythm can never be talked about without referring to stress. It is simply the flow or regularity of stress in a sentence. It is in fact a very significant characteristic of English speech. Unlike Hindi or Punjabi, English has stress timed rhythm. That means an equal amount of time helps between one stress syllabus and the next, no matter how many or how few unstressed syllables may come in between. For example, let us take up the common nursery rhyme: Jack and Jill went up the hill to fetch a pail of water. Thus, we find that the time interval between any two accented syllables remain the same. This is very important feature of English speech. If this feature is neglected, the characteristic rhythm of English language will be lost. Next question, intonation. Intonation may be defined as the variations which take place in the pitch of voice in corrected speech. In ordinary speech, the pitch of voice is changing continuously. When the pitch of voice rises, we have rising intonation, and when it falls, we have a falling intonation. When it remains on one note for an appreciable time, we have level intonation. A.W. Frisby says much of the meaning of the spoken language is conveyed by the tune to which it is said. The real music of spoken English is found in intonation. The difference between good and bad intonation is the same as we have between a well played and a poorly played musical instrument. Full care of stress and intonation helps the learner attain correct pronunciation. Advantages of language games, it provides activity centered teaching. The learners feel interested and they are able to learn things which are retained in the minds of for a long time. It provides entertainment to the students. They learn things at the same time they are able to amuse themselves. A number of insects of the children like self-assertion, self-submission, laughing, etc. are satisfied. The subject matter taught is brought nearer to reality and linked with the real life of the child. It is perhaps the most active way of learning and acquiring some knowledge. By this method, the children work wholeheartedly. They are also able to acquire many social and moral values. The learner develop fellow feelings and goodwill for the class fellows. The following points show very clearly the need and importance of role playing. Role play provides a lot of confidence to the person who is later on expected to play the role in real situations. It improves his competency of doing that work. Some people feel a lot of hesitation and shyness in the beginning while doing any work. That shyness is shed off through role play. The person playing the role of someone else gives him chances of improving his imaging ability. The more the imaginative a person is, the more he is fit for doing some work for of creative nature. The attitude of a person also undergoes a change through role play. To a great extent, it becomes a favorable. The teacher under training playing the role of someone else in different situation learns how to speak to the point and fluently. It makes the person thoughtful and creative. These are good characteristics of a would be teacher. The audio-visual aids have many advantages which are explained below. Helpful in creating interest. Just lectures by the teacher is too much of verbalism, but the use of chalk and blackboard reduces verbalism. The use of audio-visual aids give reality to the learning situations. It gives vividness of the learning situations. It gives clarity to the learning situations. The aid motivate the child. They make the abstract ideas concrete and help in making learning more effective. The different types of aids when used successfully in the classroom provide variety in the classroom situations, meet the individual differences requirement, good substitute for direct experiences, help in developing various skills. And characteristics of evaluation. Educational evaluation is the estimation of growth and progress of pupil towards objectives in the curriculum. It is a continuous process. Teaching learning process and evaluation procedure go together. It is very comprehensive. It involves objectives, learning experiences and evaluation procedure. It is very systematic and scientific because evaluation of each student is done very systematically. It gives more importance to learning as compared to teaching which does not result into learning by the student is of no value. Evaluation is a cooperative process involving student, teachers and parents. It is quantitative as well as descriptive. It is concerned with the total personality of the student, physical, moral, social, cultural, academic, etc. It is more concerned with the growth and development of the student and not with his so-called status. Evaluation is a means to an end and not an end itself. Evaluation is remedial in nature because the process of evaluation helps the learner to improve at the every next step. Evaluation is helpful to the teacher, the learner, the administrator. It is not confined to the classroom only. Also takes into consideration what happens outside the classroom. It serves as a guide to the teacher as well as the learners. Basic principles of evaluation. Evaluation is based on the following principles: principle of objective, principle of comprehensive, principle of continuity, principle of continued quality and quantity, principle of learning experiences, principle of broadness, principle of totality, principle of चाइल्ड सेंटर्डनेस, प्रिंसिपल ऑफ एप्लीकेशन। सो स्टूडेंट्स, ये था आप लोगों के लिए एक इम्पोर्टेंट वीडियो जिसके अंदर आप 4 नंबर के 4 मार्क्स के क्वेश्चन देख सकते हैं और इनमें से लगभग सभी क्वेश्चन आपके एग्ज़ाम के अंदर मिलते हैं। वीडियो अगर आपको पसंद आती है तो शेयर कर देना। चैनल को सब्सक्राइब नहीं किया तो प्लीज़ चैनल को ज़रूर सब्सक्राइब कर दें। थैंक यू।